right there. Pan or Pan, I'm sorry, Pan, I always say Pan. Pan, P-A-N, and ALGO. You see this? So there is a focus and things are moving and shaking. Focus on Gemini, a little bit of focus on Cancer energy, and yes, lots of stuff about Virgo and Black Moon Lilith. Hello, here we go. All right, so here we are. This chart starts us off right at June 6th. So you're looking Mars just 2 days before entered Taurus. What is Taurus? This is important, right? We're thinking money and our values, desire and love, how I receive. Yes, this is banking. You guys hear me say that all the time, but it's important to keep it in mind because with all this energy in this sign, that means that whatever our values are, however you define that in your life, some define it as, the person that I'm physically attracted to, my spouse even. Some people look at it as literally the bank account and those numbers and the income and the money and my job and what I'm receiving and how I receive it. But we also want to focus on some of the other things of Taurus just because there's so much energy in Taurus now. So what are some other keywords? The Earth, the planet itself. It is stabilizing energy because it's an Earth sign, but Taurus is very fixed energy, so it can be very stubborn, which is when Uranus is in any sign, it's there to rock that boat and to stir things up, to shake things up even. So Uranus in Earth, it's there to disrupt and to shake things up. The keyword for Uranus, the awakener. Yeah, it's a Big Ben alarm clock going off. It's there to say, pay attention. You got complacent, you got lazy. Some of these can be Taurus keywords, slow, lazy. Some of the not most beautiful keywords, but at the same time, when you want someone you can count on, something that's reliable, dependable, where you're like, oh no, if that person said they're going to be there, they're going to be there, right? If there's a schedule, this person's going to stick to the schedule. And that is wonderful, especially when you need to create structure and stability and order, right? Think of having the young ones at home. You want that kind of energy. This is food. That's another one, food and food security. Preferences with tastes, right? Have preferences with the touch and the clothing, right? This is a really creative energy. So we think of beauty and makeup and women energy, feminine energy, because Venus rules Taurus. So disruptions over values. And we think of, other than cash, we think of the natural resources of the planet. Uranus, technology, right? Inventions, people being quite stubborn. Yeah, Uranus rules Aquarius. So this in itself, this planet by itself is really stubborn. And it's like, but I came to challenge your values, right? There might need to be some challenge, some value adjustment that needs to be done. And that's what Uranus is here to do. It's here to say, do you still value that? Right? Some outdated stuff possibly. When Mars gets into a sign, Mars is the body and the appearance, but it's what they call a trigger planet. And I wish I could think of a better word, but how about an activation button? It's the action. It's an action planet. That's the word. It's an action planet. This is your can-do attitude, your get up and go, fearless attitude. Mars, fearless. It's that soldier. It's I'm ready to forge into battle. Because it was born for war, but it's action. It takes action with what? With the values. Takes action with the values. And Uranus can also be someone who's in charge. Mars is not someone in charge. But when Mars eventually gets to Uranus, this person in charge is going to take, there's going to be a change. There's going to be something that's choosing to disrupt because that's what Uranus does, right? So there could be a surprise. Now, this isn't going to happen this week. All right. I have a red marker right here. This is 5 degrees approximately on this chart. Mars only gets to 5 degrees. Roughly, it moves about 4 degrees within 7 days. Okay. So that's just to give you that marker for you. We do see that Uranus is at 24 and that we have Pan, P-A-N, P-A-N, Pan, at 25. So these are technically conjunct, although Pan is already past Uranus. But what's fascinating is that Pan is now at 25 conjunct ALGO. ALGO, ALGO. So I'm just going to draw this one in like that. I've been talking about ALGO for a minute, and it pretty much sits in Taurus energy. It's not a fast mover. So if you look in your chart, you'll see you got ALGO at 25, maybe 24, maybe even 26, depending upon when you were born. It's a double star system with phases of greater and lesser light, right? Sometimes it's really bright and sometimes not so much. And the old teaching is that ALGO, when it goes dim, they say it's kind of dangerous and difficult, right? The thing is it's all about desires. It's about passion and desires and bringing the subconscious to the light. Okay, so unleashing those great passions and those great desires, and in a fixed sign, Taurus, well, you see how that could be dangerous, right? We looked at Adolf Hitler's chart not too long ago, but it just gives you a little bit more insight into the desire of beauty and perfection, and how Venus and the great lengths one might go to when we're in our Taurian energy. By the way, Hitler had his son, he was a birthday of Taurus, and his sun was at 0 degrees in the sign of Taurus. Okay. Which 0 degrees is a critical degree. But Taurus energy and my values and the connections and the things we're taking action with, the bigger picture, the bigger story is the later degrees. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 of Taurus. Critical degree, we got White Moon Lilith there. So I said Virgo and Capricorn for the trine. The square to this energy, the square to Taurus, are the other fixed signs that angle it by 90 degrees. What are those? Do you know? Leo. Yep, we got Leo in red here for that reason. So depending upon what you have in your chart at 1 to 29 degrees of Leo, some of that stuff you saw in Taurus, starting with Mars, could angle up your Leo energy. Okay. And remember, Mars only goes from like 1 to like 5 degrees this week. That's it. All right. So that gives you a nice understanding of where Mars is going to be, which means for Leo, we're only looking for Mars squaring stuff in our own natal chart between 1 and we'll say 7 degrees, because you can give a 2-degree orb, right? So between like 1 and 7, Mars will angle, and you may notice it. Mars is, I want to take action. It can be very impatient. It can be very frustrated when it doesn't get to act upon what it values and with its values. In Leo, it could be very stubborn. Like, no, damn it, I'm not budging. This is what I want to do, right? The good thing about Mars in Taurus is because Taurus by nature is a little bit more relaxed. It's a little bit more cautious. It's not speedy fast like Aries, right? Because it's earth, it's not fire. So Mars gets tempered just a little bit. It gets, it might slow down a little bit because it's on the earth, but it's not all as fiery and feisty and angry and standing there with the fist in the air as it was when it was in Aries. Because at the end of the day, Taurus energy does want peace. So Mars will take action in Taurus, hopefully working towards peace and establishing stability. And that could surely be food stability and shelter, because we think of the 5 senses: the smell, taste, touch. Think of the creature comforts. You got a roof over your head, you got a place to lay down, a safe space, you got food, right? You got the medicine, the drugs, you got healthcare, you got the things that you need to survive, the basics and the necessities. Taurus and Virgo energy, big with that. And so Mars trining all that Virgo and all that Capricorn stuff. Capricorn thinking long term. What am I going to do for a career and a job? And what am I building? So Leo energy will get squared with wherever you got stuff in your Leo. Remember, Mars going through will send angles and squares, but that also goes for the Aquarius energy. Mars will square. So that means at the very beginning of this week, we have Mars and Pluto squaring each other. Yeah. Mars, here's Pluto at 146, and Mars here is at 103. You see that, right? So that's a decent square, I would say. And typically what happens when you have Mars and Pluto squaring, it's like a battle in a way. Okay, because this is fixed air. Aquarius, fixed air. Ideas. So it's got this idea, this idealistic, this certain ideology, and it might be certain, right? It might be certain that this is the way. This is, this is the plan. Or it can go the other, well, it's not really going the other route, but because it's got its mindset so fixed on this ideal, it's so fixed on it, it can rebel. It can rebel against somebody who's in charge. It can rebel against anybody who doesn't agree with it, but it's typically there to disrupt. It's a lot like Uranus that we pointed to in Taurus, which is kind of fascinating because we've got Uranus and Taurus, my values, and then Pluto and Aquarius. So it's like authority figures against authority figures here. So if we think globally, we could name names, right? I'm not going to spend my time doing that here, but we could name names and we could see. So this is social causes. Remember, Aquarius energy, this is the humanitarian. So we want to give aid. We have social concerns. We think of our fellow man. We think of the wrongdoings. We think of people starving to death around the globe, people who are purposely being starved to death, where supplies are purposely not being allowed to enter an area or whatever, however that works. I'm not there. So I'm not going to talk about it like what I'm saying is fact, but it looks like from here anyway, that's what's going on. And hopefully by now, because this is for June, hopefully by now, because we saw the end of April and all of May, there was a lot of support, even though it was very difficult still. There were people who were actively working towards establishing some sort of peace, some sort of way to create stability. Maybe peace is the wrong word, but at least some sort of stability. Okay. So, because that's to the people who are in power. Well, I'm not going to go there. Let's just stick to this. Mars getting squared by Pluto, but also Mars squaring Pluto. Okay. So Pluto is all about intense power, but it's meaningful. It's here for a purpose and it's here to make a change. So the people who are protesting, right? Like Pluto's got their back. Like that's just the reality of this. Pluto has their back. So when Mars gets involved, we know that many times Mars can be soldiers. Now, hopefully there are no soldiers on the scene, but Mars can also simply be like the police force. This is summertime already, so typically summer courses are calmed down a little bit more on campus. And Jupiter is now over here. Jupiter, college campuses and higher education. Jupiter is now in Gemini. There's videos up on the channel. If you haven't seen them, I'll put the links below about Jupiter in Gemini because Jupiter was trining Pluto, right? Jupiter is now already at 3 degrees. This is learning because it's Gemini. But higher education and wisdom is Jupiter, but it is also the justices. We think of the Supreme Court. We think of the rulings. It's also judgment. Okay? So the square between Mars and Pluto, it's short-lived. Okay. By the 12th, it's over. You don't feel it anymore. By the 12th, it's already a done thing. Okay. At the same time on the 10th, we also have Venus and Mercury and the Sun. They're right here. Okay. There's your Mercury at 15. Yeah, some days the things work, some days they don't. Mercury at 15. There you go with the Sun at 20 and Venus at 21. So the previous day, like the 8th and the 9th, it means you had Venus and the Sun exactly conjunct. You see, Venus is now pulling away at 2150. So she's just about at 22 already. So what we have here is the beginning. This is the phase where we're going to have the beginning of Venus and the birth of Venus, so to speak. I call it the birth of Venus, even though they say the birth of Venus really happened when Venus was in Taurus. But Venus was still hidden. She was combust. Venus was still hidden. We couldn't see her because Venus was so close, traveling so close to the sun. And as long as she travels that close to the sun, she's invisible. Well, now Venus is starting to pull away from the sun. And this past weekend, because she was with the sun very, very closely in conjunct, Venus gets her orders because the sun is a person in charge. All right. So it has to do with the values. So there can be food, it can be resources, and yes, we think beauty. So whether you think beauty is makeup and hair, or whether you think beauty is literally just the way something or somebody looks, or you think even art, right? However you define beauty, that's one word that I can look at a sunset and say, now that's beauty, right? So it comes down to you. But Gemini energy, a love for learning, a desire for learning. There's a lot with news and media, social media, because that's Gemini. What kind of information are we releasing? What kind of story is being told, or what kind of narratives are being shaped, or is the kind of words they use. But the banking system as well, and the news, likely, possibly, for sure. Domestic partnerships, but domestic, that was the wrong word. I'm seeing the sign of Libra. What's the word I'm looking for? The diplomacy, that's the other D, diplomatic partnerships and news about that. This is trine energy. Remember, Jupiter's here. So networking is freaking off the wall. Networking, like if we thought we were good networkers before, we're doing it on a level that we just are yeah, it's expedited because we've got Pluto in the big network sign, right? We got Pluto in the global networking sign of Aquarius, global networking. This is networking more like within my neighborhood, the businesses, the stock market, your local community, right? The housing market. This is the housing market. So when you got Venus and the sun and Mercury together and Jupiter all in this, I am thinking we're going to hear some big news about the housing market, possibly the interest rates, because we are in June. We might be hearing a different story about lowering interest rates, because, and I kind of say that confidently, because we're going to have a change in the job market. There's going to be, or at least job reports. Remember Mercury, this data? I collect the data. I write the reports. That's Mercury. It keeps track of stuff, right? So all your Gemini keywords, and Mercury also a birthday here because Mercury is in Gemini with Jupiter. So this starts like a new way of thinking, a new way of communicating, a new cycle. For sure, a new cycle when it comes to possibly education and learning, but something within the housing market, not even just housing. How about real estate and the stock market? And whoa, if you got Jupiter going into the stock market, you can be sure with Jupiter there, what does Jupiter do? Oh, Lord, it exaggerates things. Things go off the wall. So chances are when the stock market goes up like that, and that means money moves out of cash because people would move money into cash when there's higher interest rates. When they hear that the interest rates are going to be lowered and go down, then where does the money go? How do you make your money grow? It goes back into the market. It goes back into the stock market. You follow? So I mean, I'm learning this with you. There might be some economists that listen to the channel. I have no idea. Put your 2 cents in and educate me. I've just been kind of learning as I go along so that I can share with the viewers and kind of stay relevant to the practical and tangible of what's going on in our world around us. So this can be beneficial and good news, hopefully, where we, get a release in the locked in, maybe not locked in, but lower interest rates, lower mortgage rates. That would be a bonus for people. And so we go back to the chart here and the dates, and Venus and Mercury and the sun working together as one. As we get on through the week, we're going to see that. But before we get there, we got some news about Black Moon Lilith. Yeah. I even think I have her at the beginning of the chart. No, I don't. I have the moon and I have Mercury at the beginning. Well, the moon is there because of Black Moon Lilith. So we're going to go ahead now and add this to her because Black Moon Lilith is about the moon. So we think of home, we think of family, we think of history, we think of the moon cycles, the tides, the ocean, we think of ancestry and mom and nurturing, we think of our emotions, we think of childhood. Like all these words have to do with the moon. Black Moon Lilith is typically the shadow part of our personality, something that we act a certain way, we behave a certain way. It's not the most beautiful part of our personality. So we would usually deny that we act like that, or that we said that, or that we think that, or that we even feel that way. It's in Virgo. So this energy, well, let me back up. I said it's in Virgo. It's going into Virgo. Here on this chart, we see Black Moon is at 4 degrees retrograding, 4 degrees and 46 minutes in Libra in relationships. So, relationships, diplomacy, things being fair and equal and justice, Lady Liberty, right? Personal relationships and business relationships, Black Moon Lilith retrograding. Going backwards, entering Virgo 29 degrees. Entering Virgo 29 degrees. Okay. That happens on the 11th and the 12th. So, what's important about that is that means that she's literally burning through Libra energy and about to penetrate, for lack of a better word, about to penetrate Virgo energy on the 10th because she's a pretty quick mover. Well, that's super fascinating because it's happening while Mars is squaring Pluto. And it's also happening while we've got White Moon Lilith at 29. And we got Sedna at 0. So all that energy, brings about White Moon Lilith creating a trine even. Yeah, creating a trine with the Black Moon. And see, I said moon, right? I said moon. And that means it's the White Moon Lilith, right there. Looks a lot like the Black Moon Lilith symbol, but she's got that little white line right down to the side there. And I think she's facing the opposite way. White Moon Lilith. I kind of look at these two as like Glenda the Good Witch with she's all dressed in white. And then you got the other one who's like the Wicked Witch type of thing. Or you could flip those around however you want. But she's a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more benevolent, right? She's not perfect. Nope, none of the signs are. None of the energies are perfect, but it's in desire and values, and it's at a critical degree. So it's an extreme degree. Extreme just means to expect extreme things. And so there could be a switch in those interest rates. And if people weren't expecting it, well, then it would be a surprise. And that would go along with the Uranus energy and the ALGO with my desires and Pan being there. And Pan can create a bit of fear and maybe even a little anxiety because Pan is like that underlying feeling and emotion almost. It's part of it's like the hunter. Like if I give you the definition, it says Pan is the son of Hermes, and being the son of Hermes, there might be perceived or real things that we fear. We might perceive something that's there that's not actually there, or it could actually be there, right? So people may be switching up what they value and who they value, or what they're doing with the money. And there might even be news within global and central banking. We know that central banks around the world have been loading up on gold. And at the time of this recording, gold's at 2,300. Well, ever since I started recording videos and all this Taurus energy came about, I started paying attention to the metals because I thought, what the hell's going on with Uranus and Taurus? How could, the metals is a thing for sure, right? Silver, gold, whatever, right? And when I first started looking, gold was in the high 1700s, the low 1800s. And I started this channel in 2019. So now gold's at 2,300. Okay. So that's just to give you a quick example of the increase, because whenever you have instability, that's kind of like the whole point of gold, that if all hell breaks loose, if a country loses value in its currency, while gold is the go-to. So it's more of like insurance in a sense, right? So with that said, that takes us back to the White Moon Lilith in Taurus at 29, trining Black Moon Lilith entering Virgo. That means 29 degrees for Black Moon Lilith. Now, Black Moon Lilith is fast, and for this week, she will go from 29 to 22 degrees. 29 to 22 degrees, and that's at the end of the week that's where she'll be. So for those of you who have objects, whether it's in the earth signs or the signs that get squared by Virgo energy, which is the mutable signs, Gemini, that's important, right? Because Gemini's all over the place on this chart. It's huge. So we got all this energy in Gemini, and now freaking Black Moon Lilith is going to go into Virgo. Right. So you understand the complexity. If I back up a little bit, you understand the complexity of this energy of how, okay, so great. Now we got all this stuff in Gemini, and now Black Moon is going to be here, and it's going to square. She's going to throw squares, right? But she's going to start backwards. So what's interesting is we have the part of the Sultan's victory at 29, and we also have the part of a celebrated person at 29 in Gemini, which means the Black Moon and these two will have an angle and will have a square. So something in the news, Sultan's victory, that speaks to like a point of where you can feel like, I shouldn't say Sultan's victory. Oh yeah, that is what it says, Sultan's victory. So this is an Arabic lot. And since I started following them, they seem to be on point. But this talks about victory and aid. Victory and aid. It signifies honor and exaltation. And it talks about part of a kingdom and victory and aid. Interesting. So if it's in Gemini, this is your neighbors. This is people that are close by. So we can think of some locations in the Middle East who are, at least at this time of recording, in the very beginning of May, where starvation is already happening. It's already been declared by a person of the World Health Organization, I believe, just this past Sunday, which would have been like May 2nd. They declared famine. Yeah, for Palestine. So neighbors, people who are close by, sending as much aid. I think of Jordan, right? People who are close by, sending as much aid as they possibly can to help out. The United States is building a pier. I don't know if the pier is functioning yet at the time of this recording. It's supposed to be. I believe this week it's supposed to be done, but that doesn't mean functioning, right? So even now when I look in this chart, we got Saturn and Nessa together, and then we got Neptune at 29. Public figures, 29-degree public figures. This is also part of a huge T-square with Black Moon Lilith. And with those two objects I just pointed out in Gemini at 29. It's a great big T-square. Public figures, politicians, actors, actresses, singers, songwriters, somebody who performs, 29 degrees. This can be doctors and hospitals. This can be medicine. This can be those medical supplies that people need. This can be the Navy, people doing work on water. It's 29 degrees, Neptune energy, floating hospital, floating aid. It can bring protection. It can also be a lot of water energy, for sure. So we're going to go back over here before it gets too confusing, because I've got a lot on this chart. Virgo energy is the necessities. Cleaning. It's healthcare. It's clean clothes. It's making sure you have good food. Like, that's Virgo. It pays attention to the details. It's your home healthcare aides that come into the house and work. It's the nurses, right? So with Virgo there, we've got like this square happening with the Black Moon Lilith, and she will cover from 29. I'll draw a line from 29 to 22 degrees, which is important because why? Because at the beginning of this week, that is right where Venus and the sun were. You see that? So pay attention on the 10th, right? Pay attention on the 10th. By the end of the week, by the 17th, Black Moon Lilith starts squaring whatever we were hearing about as far as money, as far as food, as far as things in the neighborhood, possibly the housing market from an authority figure, right? It could have to do with and all that Gemini stuff I already mentioned. There can be some stress and tension. Okay. Now remember, the stress and tension isn't always bad. We just have to search for choices and options in a different route. And that is Gemini. Gemini's strength is figuring out another way, using communication, using thought. Remember, Jupiter is here. So something there can be lots of beautiful, beneficial energy here. At the same time, this Jupiter does square Virgo energy and Pisces energy, because that's what it does. Anything in Gemini squares Virgo and Pisces. So this is a time where I don't anticipate it to be hugely difficult. I am praying that what I'm seeing looks like a lot of the horrible, horrible news we've been hearing about. Hopefully there's been some sort of a truce or some sort of a treaty of some sort of anything to create more stability in this location, especially, I'm kind of pointing to overseas, because what happens over there, like whether we want to be or not, we're globally connected. Okay. So the college campuses and the education are saying, hey, we're not happy with this. We've been protesting and we'll continue to protest. Black Moon Lilith squaring the education system, Gemini, squaring teachers, squaring classmates, squaring coworkers. This can also have something to do with the jobs report and a lack of. And what that means is it doesn't mean that people are coming and saying, hey, I lost my job, although there have been massive layoffs in the white collar jobs, right? Like in tech, there's been a lot of layoffs. Tesla's done a lot of layoffs. There's been a lot of layoffs, and Gemini energy is the white collar workers. So we will have likely a jobs report that shows there's been a decline in new jobs created, which I know is what the Fed has been looking for before they will lower interest rates, because we've got a strong economy, but because the jobs reports were just kept creating new jobs, it was like, what the hell's going on? So we'll see what happens. But Black Moon Lilith squaring this coworker stuff, squaring the news, and this being jobs, Black Moon Lilith, your day-to-day routines, your tasks, your projects, where you go for your 9 to 5, what do you do on the regular, right? We think of digestion and pets as well, and my stomach and health care, big time. But squaring this, so there might be the news that the markets need. And that would make sense if there's going to be a decline in interest rates. That would make sense, because if the markets increase, if money gets flooded into the stock market, it would only happen if the interest rates go down in cash, because then you aren't making the interest in the cash. You follow? The high numbers aren't there. So with that said, that takes us now to the 12th and the 16th. And I have highlighted here Mercury and Venus, and they're in red because they are squaring Neptune. Mercury and Venus in Gemini get to a critical degree. These two are together, hitting the critical degree at 29 together. Information and news. Again, what are we hearing about? 29 degrees being a critical degree. We think people who are in charge. We think of boss energy. We think whether it's the Fed, whether it's we think of different social sites and social media, the SEC, people who are set up to oversee the way we communicate and the way information is shared and the way the information is put out there, whether it's actually fact or crap or stated as news, even though it knows damn well it's not really news, right? So authority energy, because Venus and Mercury will be right here at the 29. And when they get here, the celebrated persons and the Sultan energy has now moved, and it's in Cancer. Okay. So we see that if Mercury and Venus are together at 29, there's news and information likely about money and about the markets, and probably commercial real estate, because real estate in general, but likely commercial real estate could be a thing. And if commercial real estate has news, and if it's a surprise, it might not be the best surprise, or it might be the expected surprise, but that could truly have a problem. It could have a big negative effect on banks when the commercial real estate values might possibly, well, lose even more value, or the values within themselves. There's loans that can't be repaid, type of thing, because we know values are going to go. They can go down. On the flip side of this, you can also say, hey, gee, that doesn't make sense. If the stock markets are going to go up, then wouldn't that mean that the housing market goes up? Because you said Jupiter can inflate something. And you're right, it can do both. It's complicated. It can go both ways. I'm not making, like, this isn't me just on the whim saying like making this stuff up. The energy just is. And energy runs like this. It's got extremes at each end. And we know Gemini energy is infamous for its duality. Think about that. Infamous for its duality and its contrarian point of views and perspective. And think about the news. Think about how many times you've listened to the news and you're like, okay, so this channel just said this. This newscaster just said this, but they just said this. Like, we're like, what the hell's going on? I just heard 3 or 4 different contradictory things on what is actually happening. And that's a lot of Gemini energy. So here in the States, we know for us, because we are in an election season, yeah, whatever. We're geared for it. We're like, okay, we know this is the silly season for us. So that's from actually the 6th to the 12th. Did I say from the 6th to the 12th? From June 12th to June 16th, Mercury conjunct Venus, money, Mercury, news, information and learning, and what do I value and desire is Venus, and beauty and love, squares Neptune, authority figures. Neptune can be someone, how about it like this? Maybe it's not an authority figure, but maybe it's someone who wants to be an authority figure, who pretends that they're an authority figure, because this is the actors, this is the performers. I am the performer. I'm on the silver screen. I am performing for you. So when you have Mercury squaring that, holy crap, maybe we'll actually hear a piece of truth at this time, right? Because it's a square between Mercury and Neptune. Stay tuned. We'll see. But money and values and desires will be part of that story. So that's why I say banking and real estate is possible, and the housing market is definitely possible. Social media sites, a lot of interesting news about different social sites owned by prominent public figures that, whatever, I can't keep track, don't want to keep track, but you guys know where I'm going. So now this takes us to the 16th and the 17th, and Venus and Mercury conjunct in Gemini at the critical degree exactly on the 16th, but then the sun joins. The sun joins the party. This is an authority figure. This is an authority figure. So literally, if you were to pull up the chart, you're going to have the sun sitting there like at 27, right? Then you're going to have Venus at 28 and Mercury at 29. Like there's a day when they're all like 1 degree away from each other. And so that means Venus is combust and so is Mercury. And it's the authority figure that has something to say. And so that's the authority figure in the sign of Gemini. Which means that authority figure in Gemini energy, you see the sun's at 20 here on the 10th. So as it moves along, it gets to 27, right? At the end of the week, it gets to 27. But by then, at the end of the week, this black moon has already moved. She's already at 22 by then. You see, so she's not going to be part of that difficulty. So whatever this authority figure is going to do, there's not a whole lot challenging it. And it has to do with the Gemini energy. So again, that's why I said there might be an authority figure in the news who comes out and has something to say, again, about the markets, about the housing. It could be information connected to the banking in the stock market. But yeah, I gotta, in my brain, I'm hearing like the central banks and possibly the real estate stuff and getting more information about that and maybe clarity on how, when all this stuff began with the pandemic, I think it actually began before the pandemic, right? When you go back and you look at the numbers, the economy was starting to go south at the beginning, like before the pandemic. And I think the pandemic kind of Uh, well, let's just say, I'm not going to say it was purposely used to distract. I'm not going to say that at all. It was a global thing and people died in the millions. So I'm not going to say that, but I will just say that what we're in now is kind of like the decline, because we were honestly in a cycle of zero interest rates for so long. And listening to the different economists, they're like, it was bizarre. You never have just zero interest rates like all the time. It's not, like it's crazy. So this is like what they call an adjustment, like an adjustment cycle. And it seems like this is like we're getting clarity on that here. And it's taken 4 years to kind of get the bigger picture on what's going on with the costs of things and goods and services in general, because there's just been a lot of change, right? A lot of death, a lot of goodbye to the old ways, and a lot of change. And then that takes us to the 17th. And what happens on the 17th? Well, actually a lot. You have Mercury and Venus going into Cancer energy on the 17th. Yeah, together. Again, homes, the moon energy, the housing market, families, but it's the public. Remember, the public is huge with the moon, the public. So we've got on the 17th, I think that's Sunday, maybe even Monday. When we do the next week's video, we'll talk more about this, because Venus and Mercury are together at 0 degrees in homes, in feelings, in emotions, in women, Cancer energy, feminine energy. But women has been a really big issue, because there has been a war on women's rights, on women's health care, on women's reproductive rights, on women's bodies. Basically, the war on my freaking body. Like, this is mine. Hello, back up. Hello. This is me. This is mine. That's yours. You do you. I'm going to do me. Step away. Like, there's been a war on women's rights. So there might be some news and information about that. So anytime you see Venus, and I referenced Venus in this other chart, and I was talking about it like as in just money, but it doesn't have to be just about money. This can be feminine energy we're talking about, and relationships and desire and love. It surely can be, and news about those things. And that square that's created by the Neptune. So typically looking at that, we know Gemini is transportation. Like, if we back up on the chart, we know Gemini is I'm in my local community and I'm going here and there in a short trip, a short journey. If United States has a pier built literally right there, right off of Palestine there, and that pier is there to provide food and water and medicine, right? Essentials. When Venus and Mercury get here, that square from Neptune, maybe there's something there. Maybe there's a stall and a delay, because Neptune can make stuff look confusing. So sometimes there can maybe be a weather event that creates fog and confusion, literally. Maybe there's something crazy about the water in general where it makes delivery difficult, or maybe supplies for a day or 2 or 3 disappear, because this is fast. This is not a long-term thing. Remember, this is just a weekly video. It's a short-term thing, because then the next day, these supplies, well, the food and, Venus and Mercury together sit right here. They go to 0 degrees in Cancer. Okay. So getting there means the food and the water and the communication and the news. Oh, I have 2 Venuses. And the news, because that's Mercury, right? Recently, Al Jazeera was, I think they weren't allowed, like their offices were closed when they were reporting on what was going on between Palestine and Israel. The news is Mercury as well. So Venus and Mercury together, 0 degrees in Cancer, surely we will hear about something. So it looks like this week overall, when we back this chart up, I feel like this is going to be a big news week. I do. Remember, when we talk Gemini, it's news, but it's also you talking on the phone. It's also really chatty energy, texting, snail mail, just being really busy within my neighborhood and your neighbors. Oh Lord. Whenever Mars goes through Gemini, the neighborhood where I live, really loud, like just superbly loud. People knocking on the door, tons of salespeople, Gemini salespeople. Yeah. TV ads, commercials, somebody selling you something every which way to Sunday. Yeah. That's big time energy. I also have the stars on the chart. Can you see those stars I have pointed out? I've got 4 stars on the chart. And I have these here because those stars represent where we used to have the fixed cardinal cross from January all the way to May. Okay. So here we are now in June, and this fixed cardinal cross, I have stars there to show you where they used to be. Now, this is no more. We do have 2 fixed stars, which are these 2. We got Vega and Sirius. They're still here because they're fixed stars, so they barely move. These are always here, all right? But we used to have the north and the south node sitting in Libra at 14, 15 degrees, right there where that star is. And we had the north node in Aries at 14, 15. But if you look closely on this chart, the nodes have finally released and moved. They're now at 13 degrees, 1302 to be exact. They always go backwards. So you're going to see them in red. That's a normal movement. Every once in a while, they stop and they go forward. That's how they were able to sit at 14 and 15 for 6 months. But now they're going to go backwards. So they're releasing off of that horrible cardinal great cross we had in the chart, which was in Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. There will be movement now. It shouldn't be as stressful. It shouldn't be as difficult. So there should be some ease now that cardinal fixed cross has let up a little bit. And we've got some subscribers on the channel who have stuff already there in their natal charts, and it likely created more difficulties in their lives. And so hopefully this is some good news for you. With that, this week looks like it's really a focus about big focus on Mercury, big focus on Venus, and big focus on the moon, the public, and hopefully supplies getting to the people that need it. But maybe some good news about the markets and the housing market and lower interest rates. We'll see. All right. Thank you for your time. You got questions, you comment below, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.